Hello and welcome to Jamie TV. Thank you very much for watching. If you're serious about making music with your iOS device, then you're going to need a few quality compressors in your effects folder. If you're already pretty familiar with this kind of stuff, then I'm simply here today to tell you about a quality compressor I think you should have a look at. If you know less about compression, then don't worry, stick around because there's going to be a lot of helpful stuff about compression in this video. And if there's anything I don't cover, if you have any questions, you're very welcome to email me directly. My email address is down below the video and I am here to help. So for those who know a little less about compression, all it basically boils down to is, if you imagine if you've recorded some audio and you look at the WAV file and you see your peaks and troughs and they're kind of pretty far apart, we use compression to reduce those dynamics down. We bring the peaks and troughs closer together so that we have a more even sound which will sit in a mix much more easily. We basically squash the signal a little bit. That's why my signature bass compressor, which we're not here to talk about today, that's why it's called the bass squeezer, and that's why the icon that I designed for it is a vice around a bass clef. And the way I designed it is I mirror imaged that, and so it kind of makes a sort of a heart shape in the middle there, because I thought that was cool. If you fancy getting hold of one of these, they're made by XVive, and if you get hold of one of the first run to come out of the factory, which probably would have to be second hand now I would imagine, they actually printed the logo wrong, so it's kind of the same on both sides and you don't get the heart, but it is kind of more, and they missed my signature off the side as well. How dare they? So I guess that's kind of like a rarer one. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that today. What we're going to do is we're going to throw some keyboards down. Now I've got a drum loop set up. I'm going to throw some keyboards down and then I'm going to show you how we use Blue Mangoo's multiband compressor. So this is what we see when we first open Multiband Compressor. Before we hear any sounds, let's have a look at the user interface and see what everything's about. We currently only have one band available to us. If that doesn't make any sense to you, don't worry, it will do soon. The controls that we see down here are pretty standard controls for a compressor, although those controls do vary slightly from compressor to compressor. Ignore this section over here because we're going to have a good look at that later. The input gain is how much signal we want to put into the compressor. The attack control determines how quickly the compression effect begins to work, and the release will control how quickly the compression effect lets go once the signal drops below the threshold. When we're compressing an instrument, the chances are that we're going to reduce the overall output of the instrument, and so output gain gives us a way to boost that signal back up. With the threshold, we set how loud the signal has to be before compression is applied. Knee sets how the compressor reacts to signals once the threshold is passed. A hard knee setting would mean that it will clamp down on that signal straight away. A soft knee means that the compression kicks in more gently as the signal goes further past the threshold. You'll see here that we have a choice between a soft, hard and super soft knee. Ratio controls how much compression is applied. For an example, if we used a 4:1 ratio, then the input signal would have to cross the threshold by 4 dB for the output level to increase by 1 dB. And this is basically a dry to wet mix control. So if you wanted to blend in some of the original unaffected sound with the affected sound, you can balance that with this. But for me personally, I'm just going to leave this on wet mix because I think for demonstration purposes that's for the best. For me to explain the other things that we're looking at on the user interface here, we're going to need that synth to be coming into the compressor so I can show you stuff. So I'm going to press play. I've muted out the drums, so we're just going to hear that synth. Okay, now you can see in the display at the top, there are kind of two waveforms here. The one with the higher peaks is the original signal, and then the one with the lower peaks is the compressed signal. And the meters over here, the one on the left, that's the signal coming into the compressor. That's the outgoing signal there on the right. And this meter here is giving us an indication of how much we're squashing that signal. Alright, so before I get stuck into explaining the multiband aspect of this compressor, what I'm going to do, I've talked you through what these controls do, but for people who are less sure about compression, what I think you ought to do is just press play, and I'll have a quick play with these controls so you can hear them in action. First thing, I'm going to bring the threshold down, so watch the indicator here that sort of shows you how much we're squashing the signal. See what happens with that. And if I lower the attack, now for a synth sound, I'm going to want a slow release because this is kind of a constant signal and it's not really gonna drop out at any point. So if I was to have a fast release on this, we'd have an unpleasant effect. I'll just show you. That's if my mouse will work. There we go. You can hear that there. That's not what we want. I'm just going to take that release up pretty slow. That's going to be better. And we don't need the attack that quick. Now let's have a higher ratio so you can hear that kick in. And now you can see that we've really squashed that signal down. Now that's just me demonstrating what the controls do. That's not really the desired sound that I'm looking for today. What I'm going to do now is add some more bands, and I'm going to show you how the multiband aspect works. Okay, now to add more bands to the compressor, we simply press this plus over here, and again and again. So now we've got 4 available bands. If we decide we've got too many, we can use the cross here to lose one. We can solo a band with the solo control, and we can simply switch a band off with the on-off. To move between the controls for each band, we simply click within the space like that, and you can see they're all nicely color-coded so that even a stupid old hippie like me can see very clearly what's going on. So this gives us the ability now to apply different degrees of compression to different frequencies of the incoming signal. We can move the bands around with these little handles up here. So let me show you how I'm going to use them to select different frequency ranges from the incoming signal. We can see down here that there's quite a lot of weight to the bottom end of this synth, which I kind of did on purpose so I could demonstrate this. I'm going to call this section lower mid, this section upper mid, and this one remains just for the very top end of the spectrum. Now what I want to achieve now using this compressor on this synth sound is, I really like this synth sound, but I've got a little too much weight in the bottom end. I feel like it could do with a bit more poke in the upper mids, and I want to really brighten up that top end. The nice thing about the multiband compressor is that you can sort of almost use it as a mixer as well as a compressor. So I'm just going to press play and let you hear me fool around with it and see if I can find the sound that I'm looking for that's going to sit nicely in the mix I have in mind. I'm turning that up so I can hear the effect I have on it, but actually I'm going to use this control to mix this low end down. An important note about compressors: some compressors will colour your sound in the way that my signature pedal does. It contributes to the tone of the instrument in a way that I find pleasing. Other compressors are more transparent, and this one from Blue Mangoo is the most transparent one that I've used on the iOS platform. It will enable you to sculpt your sound without it actually altering the tone of it. That was a clip from a track that I used to open up my recent video about the AR909, and when that video came out, quite a few people messaged me and asked me what was that synth sound that we were hearing there. Well, the synth sound was actually coming from Magellan 2, but the reason it was pumping in the way that it was because I used the sidechain function from Multiband Compressor. Now, sidechaining is something that a lot of people struggle to get their head around, but it's not really that complicated a thing. It's just difficult to explain. So let me have a go. So let's say, for example, we've got a synth and we've got a compressor attached to that synth, and we've set the compressor up to behave in a certain way in response to the transients from the synth. When we sidechain, what we do is we connect a different instrument to the compressor, and then the compressor will respond to the transients from that instrument, whatever it happens to be. In the case of this sound, it's a kick drum, right? So the compressor acts or doesn't act in response to the kick drum, but it's still affecting the sound of the synth, right? I think that was an okay-ish, reasonable-ish sort of an explanation. Let's see if I can re-engineer the way that I made that sound in AUM, and let's see if that just makes it a little more clear. Okay, so first thing on the left here, we have DigiKeys, which I'm using to send MIDI information to my instruments. On channel 1 here, I am sending a simple 4 on the floor kick drum part to Digisticks. And if I just press play, just mute out that synth so you can hear the kick. The thing is though, we don't actually want to hear the kick, we just want to use that signal to make the synth pump. So I'm just going to disengage that. Now I'm going to unmute the synth so that you can hear what that sounds like without the compressor in the chain. Okay, we'll put the compressor back in the chain, and we want to send a signal from Digisticks to this compressor here. So in the first effect slot here, we go to Multibus Audio Unit Instances. Select Multiband Compressor, and now that is going to send the signal from Digisticks to the compressor and make it pump like this. Oh, let's just return to 0. Okay, now there's a couple of things that we can do here inside the compressor with regards to the sidechain function. We could switch the sidechain off altogether so that we can compare the difference between the two functions. We could select single band so that only one of the bands of the compressor is receiving the signal from the sidechain, or we can have full spectrum, which means that the whole compressor is receiving that sidechain signal. So let's just hear those options. Pretty cool, eh? Thank you very much for watching Jamie TV. I hope that I've successfully unravelled some of the dark art of compression and of sidechaining, and I hope that you've enjoyed this walk through what I think is an absolutely stunning app. If you think I've missed anything, if you have any questions, then by all means comment below, email me direct, contact me on social media. All the links that you need are down below, and I am here to help. I'm very happy to respond to your questions. Now, I'm working really hard at building up this channel at the moment, and it's very important to me. So if you'd like to help me out in any way at all, there's a paypal.me link down below the video. But also, please don't underestimate how much it helps me out if you just give the video a thumb up, subscribe, maybe give me a share on social media. I'd really appreciate it. So anyway, until next time, be good people, be sweet to each other, take care of yourselves, make lots of music, and don't pissy pants about. See you later.